Hey, what's up everyone, Julian here, hope you're all good and welcome back to another Flask video. And today we're going to be kind of picking up where we left off in the last video with task queues. And we're going to build upon that a bit. We're going to do some web scraping as a task that we can run in the background. And we're also going to restructure our app to something that's a bit more production ready. So let's jump in over to our main screen here, and you can see we've got a terminal open and we've got a single page Flask app up and running. So this is what we built in the last episode, which was just a gentle introduction to working with task queues with Flask. And we used Redis and we used the RQ package for our task queue. So what we're going to do today is just create a new application, but it's going to be a bit more kind of production ready. So we're going to create an app as a package and we're going to separate our tasks out into their own file. So let's go ahead and get started. So here in the terminal, I'm going to clear that out. And if I run ls, don't worry too much about what we've got in this directory. It's not really relevant for this video. It's just I've been playing around with a few things. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new virtual environment. So python-venv, and we're going to need a few packages. So again, we're going to install Flask, Redis, and RQ, but we're also going to install BeautifulSoup, which we are going to use to do our scraping. So source env bin activate, and if we do pip list, we can see we don't have anything installed. So pip install Flask, Redis, RQ, and BeautifulSoup 4. So this isn't really going to be a tutorial on web scraping. I'm going to do something on that in the future, but I thought it was a good example to show a kind of background task running. So let's just do a quick check, pip list, and there we go, we've got our dependencies. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new file called run.py. And we can see that there in our file explorer in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to mkdir, create a new directory called app and cd into it. I'm going to create a new file called init.py, dunder init, and we'll also create a touch views.py and tasks.py. So let's look at what we've got. So we've got our run, and we're going to use this as our application entry point. And in app, we've got init.py, tasks, and views. So let's go ahead and open up all of the files that we're going to work with. So there we go. Let's start with run.py. So we're going to create our Flask app as a package and use the init.py to bring everything together. So in fact, let's start here. So we'll go ahead and from Flask import Flask, and we need to we just need to import Redis, and from RQ import Q with a capital Q. So that's everything we're going to need for our init. Now let's go ahead and create our Flask app object, and we do that with app equals Flask, and then we pass in dunder name. So I want to import these two files here. So we do that with from app import views and from app import tasks. There we go. So that's everything for now in our init. We'll come back. We need to create our Redis connection and create a queue, which we're going to do in our init, but we'll do that shortly. So in run.py, from app import app. So we're going to import the app object here from the app package, and then we'll go ahead and if dunder name is equal to dunder main, we'll call app.run, and then let's jump to views.py. Let's go ahead and let's just create something really simple. So from app import app, because we need to use the app root decorator, app.root. Let's just do a /def index return hello world. That will do. So let's just make sure our app is up and running on its own. So if we run ls, let's come back out of our app directory, and we'll go ahead and export Flask app equals run.py, export Flask env equals development and Flask run. Come to the browser, And there we go, we've got our hello world. So our app is up and running, and now we can start filling it out. So back to our init.py. So just like last time, we need to create our Redis connection, and we need to create our first queue. So we'll do that with, I'm going to create a new object here called R, and call redis.redis, and then a set of parentheses, because we're just going to connect to Redis, which is running on the kind of default port. We need to then create our queue, and just like last time, we're going to do queue equals queue with a capital Q, and then we pass in the Redis connection. Connection equals R. So that's going to create our queue, which we can then add our tasks to. So let's go back to, I think what we will do next is come back to our views, because we need to do a couple more imports here. So we need to import our Redis connection. So I'm going to go ahead and from app import R, and we want to import our queue from our init. So from app import queue. And I think what we'll also do, we are going to render a template. So from Flask import render template, and also I want request. Okay, so our tasks.py file is the file that we're going to use to actually create all of our functions which we will use to execute our tasks. So let's jump into tasks right now and create our first function, which is going to be the handler for doing the web scraping. So we're going to need URL lib, and from that I want to import request, because we are going to make a request to a URL and pass that data using BeautifulSoup. And then from bs4 import Beautiful BeautifulSoup, and I also want to import LXML, and I think LXML I didn't actually pip install, so let me just check. Oh, not piplet. Pip is lit. So pip install LXML. Pip. There we go. So go ahead and install LXML if you want to follow along. Fast run. What else are we going to need? So just like last time, we're going to simulate some delay using time if we need to. So let's create our function. So I want this function to go to the URL, download the HTML, and pass the HTML. I want to get all of the paragraph tags. I want to join them up as one long string, split that string, and then count each occurrence of every word. So what we're going to do is def count words, and that's going to take a URL. Then what we'll do is we'll just send a message out to the terminal saying counting words at, and then we'll drop the URL in there as an F string. So then we'll go ahead and actually get that or make that request. So we'll do request.url open, and we'll pass it in the URL. Next thing we need to do is create our soup. So we do that with soup equals BeautifulSoup, and then we pass the BeautifulSoup class the HTML body, and also the type of parser that we want to use to pass our HTML. So we'll do r.read.decode, because the response here is going to be in bytes, so we need to decode it. And then we'll also pass in LXML, because we're going to use that as our HTML parser. So we need to find all of the paragraph tags, and I want to join them up as one long string. So create a new variable here called paragraphs, and then what we'll do is a .join, and then we're going to do a bit of a list comprehension here. So we'll do p.text for p in soup.find all p tags. So that's going to give us a one long string all separated with a space. So then I'm going to create a dictionary here called word count and just initialize that as an empty dict, and then for I in paragraphs.split, and we won't provide any arguments to split because I want to split it on the space. If not I in word count, then what we'll do is go ahead and word count I equals 1. So if the word is not in the word count, then we'll go ahead and create a new entry into our word count dictionary here with the word, and we'll give it a initial value of 1. Else what we'll do is word count, and we'll access the I key plus equals 1. So if the word is in the word count dictionary, we'll go and increment that value by 1. I think also one thing I missed here is to start a timer. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and start equals time dot time, and then what we will do is create an ending. So we'll do end equals time dot time, and then we'll go ahead and create a new variable here called time elapsed equals end minus start, and then we'll just go ahead and print our word count. So we'll just dump that dictionary out. But the chances are, you know, if you're doing any kind of web scraping here, you'll have a database up and running. So maybe this is the point where you would want to go ahead and, you know, maybe do some more more processing on the word count, and maybe sort them by, you know, high to low. We're not going to do that in this episode. Or maybe you just want to take the, 5 most popular words used. Maybe you want to do some analysis on that page to see how many occurrences of certain keywords are being used on that page. So we'll go ahead and print the word count, and then we'll go ahead and print, we'll throw an F string in here, and total words, and that will be len of word count. And then maybe we'll go ahead and print the time elapsed. We'll do another F string, time elapsed, and then we'll throw our time elapsed variable in there. And then what we'll do is go ahead and return the len of word count. Okay, I think that should be everything for our function that we're going to use to handle the task. So what we'll do is head back to views, and what I want to do is import our task, and then we're going to go ahead and create a new view, and then grab the URL that's going to come in from the form, and then create our new task. We're going to add it to the queue. So what we need to do is, I'll do that up here, from app.tasks import count words. So again, all we're doing here is just app.tasks refers to this file, and then we're importing the count words function. And I want to do a bit of formatting here, so I'm going to go ahead and from time import strf time. So we're going to just format a timestamp and then send that back out. So let's go ahead and create a new route. So app.route, and we'll call this just add task for now, and methods equal to get and post, because we are going to render a template out. So def, we'll just call it add task again. So let's go ahead and create a new directory here in our app directory. So a new folder, templates, and we need to create a new file, and we'll go ahead and call this add task.html. That will do. So for now, I'm just going to copy in the HTML, otherwise we're going to be here forever. And I am using Bootstrap, and I'll throw a link in the description where you can go and read a text-based tutorial. So let's take a quick look at the HTML here. So we're just importing the Bootstrap CSS, got a title tag up in the head. And if we look at the body, we've just got a single form with the action of /add task, and we're making a GET request. So we're leaving out the method attribute here, so it's going to default to get. Let's just make a bit of space here. We've got a input here with just a type of text, and it's telling us to enter a URL. And then we've got a button here, and we've also got this just small bit of text that's going to sit under the input saying if message, then we're going to display a message. So this is something we're going to have to pass to our template. And then underneath that, we have another little section here in the HTML, which is just going to display the jobs in our queue. And we're just using Ginger here to look at some of the attributes of the job or the task. So that will make more sense when we actually finish off this route. So let's go ahead and get this done, and then we can step through it. So what I'm going to do is first go ahead and create a new variable here called jobs, and I'm going to call queue.jobs. And queue is the instance of our queue. And if we call the .jobs attribute, it's just going to return any jobs that are currently in the queue. So that's quite a useful attribute there if you want to quickly see what jobs you've got in any given queue. We'll create a message variable here and just set it to none for now. And then if request.args, so if we've got any arguments there in our query string, what we're going to do is URL equals to request.args.get URL, and we're doing that because if we take a look at our form, the name attribute is set to URL. So when we submit this form, it's going to encode URL equals and then whatever value we have for this input into the URL. So what we'll do is go ahead and create a new task, and we're going to call queue.enqueue to add a new task to our queue. We then need to pass it the function name that we want to run in the queue, and then any argument. So our function was called countWords, and then the argument is the URL. So we take a quick look at our task. Again, function name is countWords, and the argument is a URL. So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're getting the URL from the form and then just passing it into our queue.enqueue method here, which is going to go ahead and add a task to the queue. So let's go and create another variable here called jobs, and we'll just update queue.jobs. And what this is going to do is just let us, as we go ahead and add more jobs to our queue here, it's just going to overwrite the original jobs variable and update that variable with any new jobs in the queue. And what we'll do is queueLen equals len of queue. And that's just going to tell us again, it's just going to give us a number of how many jobs are in the queue. You could probably do something like len of jobs, but this is just another way to demonstrate getting the length of how many jobs are in the queue. And now finally, let's create our message. I will do an f string task queued at, and then we'll use our curly braces here. And we can call some attributes on the task, and that's going to give us some, again, just attributes of the task that we've just added to the queue. So we can do task.enqueued at, and then call strf time, and then we'll pass that a format of %a, %d, and %b, and that's just going to format the datetime object into something a bit more understandable. And maybe we can go ahead and add %y, %h, actually %y, and I'm just checking my notes here, %h, colon, %n, and colon %s, and that's going to give us the hour, minute, and the second. And then what we'll do, we'll also pass in our queueLen and just say jobs queued. I think that will do us for now for the message. And then what we'll do is just go ahead and we can do that. We don't need to do that in this request.args. We can go ahead and return render template, and our template was called, let's take a quick look, add task.html. And we'll also go ahead and pass message equals message, and jobs equal jobs. Okay. So I think that's everything for the view. So again, we're just going to grab that URL from the query string that's going to come in from the form. We're going to add a new task to our queue, passing it the function name we want to call and the argument that we want to pass to the function. We then use jobs, queue.jobs, to get the current jobs on the queue. And this is, I think, going to return a list of job objects, which we can then access the attributes of. And again, we're just passing that out into our template. So to actually go ahead and run this app, so let's go ahead and we've got our Flask app up and running. We need to make sure Redis is up and running as well. So we do that with redis-server, and go ahead and just search for a tutorial of how to install and get Redis up and running on whatever platform you're on. I'm on Windows Subsystem for Linux, so it's I'm using the Ubuntu, so it's just as simple as, I think it's just apt-get Redis server or something, but go ahead and look at the docs for that. And we need to get our worker running as well. So to do so, you need to make sure you're in the same directory as your application entry point. So here we are in a new terminal window here, and I'm in the same directory as run.py. So if we go and rq worker, what that's going to do is just start the worker service listening. So whenever it gets a message from Redis to say that a new message or a new task is in the queue, it's going to go ahead and execute that queue. So I think we should be good to go. So let's just go ahead and, okay, we got a little error here. So I must have missed something out. Sometimes it's hard to spot an error. Okay, that's fine, it's working. Okay, so our hello world page is working. If we go to add task, here we go. We've got our little form here. So what I'll do, I'll just go ahead and grab a URL, and I'm just going to grab one from my website. We'll drop that in, and let's see if we get any errors. Okay. That's not running as it should. Oh, okay, it's because I didn't submit it. Okay, there we go. Right, so we can see we've got our jobs are being added to the queue, and if we go ahead and queue up loads of tasks, there we go. We've got 12 jobs in the queue, and we can see our RQ service here is executing all of those tasks in our queue, and it's printing out the word list here. So let's go ahead and take a look at our task again. So it's going to the URL that we've given it. It's creating the soup object here. We're grabbing all the paragraph tags and updating this word count dictionary with each instance of the word plus the actual word itself. So that's the result there. So maybe let's go ahead and grab another URL, maybe from python.org. And let's go and run the same thing, but on a different URL. So let's go ahead and drop python.org in, and we'll go ahead and reload a few more times. And I'm not sure why. Okay. Maybe it's because we haven't added any delay in our function. It's sort of executing everything extremely quick. So yeah, we can see actually that's taking 0.133 seconds. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of delay into our function. So we'll do a time.sleep, and maybe for now we'll just pass it 2 seconds of delay. So again, this delay is just to simulate if you had a long running background task. You know, maybe we've got some network latency, or you know, the URL that we're trying to pass is taking some time. So let's go ahead and again we can see we've got python.org here up in the URL. So let's go and queue that up a few more times. There we can see our queue length is increasing. So now we've got 12 in the queue, and that should be running in the background. So there we go. We've got our task queue doing our bidding in the background while we've returned something to our client. So let's take a look here. We're just using the, well, in fact, it's probably easier to show you here in the HTML. So we're passing in the jobs object here. So if we go back to our views, we're getting that with q.jobs. So q again being the name of our queue, and then we call the .jobs attribute, and then we're passing that into our template. So q.jobs is going to pass us a list of all the current jobs in that queue. And then if we look at the HTML, we're just using some ginger here saying if jobs, then we're going to go ahead and iterate over each job in the jobs. And we can use we can call some of the attributes of the job object. So we've got the func name, which is going to give us the name of the function, and then job.args will give us any arguments that we've passed to the function. We then got the ID, we've got the status, and we've got the created at and enqueued at. And there are a few other attributes on the job objects, which I'll throw the links in the documentation for our queue, so you can go and check them out. Definitely some interesting things you can do here, like, you know, you could build yourself a nice dashboard which is going to get all of the current jobs in a queue and maybe render them out to a back end on your website, which I think would look quite nice. So if we take a look at that, we've got the what was the first one here? We've got the function name, and then we've got the so there we go, we've got the function name, we've got the args being passed in, we've got the job ID, we've got the status, we've got the date and time of when it was created and when it was enqueued. So again, that was just another example of how we can use a task queue in Flask and, you know, make things a little bit more logical and modular. You know, we've broken out our tasks into their own file, and then we're just importing them into the views whenever we want to use them. So hopefully that made sense. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and if you've got any questions or comments, do leave them down in the description. Maybe something I didn't touch on is, you know, in tasks, for example, I think actually I did mention it, maybe at this point is when you would, you know, upload something to a database and maybe send off an email saying, you know, the URL that you requested has been scraped and here's the information. Or maybe you could send an email containing a URL which is going to give them a report, which could be quite a nice little feature here. You know, thinking aloud about some kind of applications for this, you could do something like a URL or maybe a domain, and you can maybe select the elements that you want to scrape. So maybe you want to get all of the anchors, maybe you want to get all the paragraph texts, any tables. You can then go ahead and submit that URL, and it's either going to just go ahead and scrape a single URL, or maybe you give it a kind of root domain and it's going to go ahead and pass that entire website and then create some kind of report or upload some information to a database which your users can then access in the future. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Text-based version of this tutorial in the description, along with any of the documentation that I think you guys will find useful. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.